We'll call this meeting to order. Before we get started, if there's anybody that wants to speak on one of the agenda items, fill out a blue card, and when that item comes up, you'll have an opportunity to speak. If anybody wants to speak on anything other than what's on the agenda, could also fill out a blue card, and we will call on you in a moment. So can we have a roll call, please?
Sorry.
Okay. Mine's on.
Sorry about that. So Commissioner Charleston has recused himself due to conflict of interest with the item. Commissioner Hovey? Commissioner Laney? Vice Chair Lee? Chair Oblea?
Here.
Thank you.
Oh, no, it works. No. Oh, it's red now. We're good. It's red? Correct.
Oh, there it is. It's recording now. So for clarification, the nature of the conflict is proximity to the applicant or application location.
So this is news to me.
Okay, then my mic should be on then. Okay, item 3, Commissioner Lee, would you join us or lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Please all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Public comment time. Anybody wishing to speak before the commission is able to do so. Fill out a blue card. Do we have any cards filled out?
No, we don't have any speaker cards.
Thank you. Okay, then let's go on to item 4. Is there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
We have one brief presentation, sir.
Okay, that'll be done after, correct? All right. Then let's move on to item number 5, consent calendar. Do you have any comments or any of these items want to be pulled, or is there a motion to accept the consent calendar as submitted?
Move approve.
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
May I get it on record? Commissioner Hovey?
Aye.
Commissioner Laney?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lee?
Aye.
Chair Oblea?
Aye. Okay.
Motion passes 4-0.
Is this something different, or this wasn't like this before? or not? Is it gonna go back to the other way? Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Let's move on to item 7. All right, item 7. Item 6, presentation. Oh, we have a presentation. Yes, we do. Item 6, presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just a brief presentation tonight. I'd like to introduce to the Planning Commission Alan Lim, who's off here to my left. Alan is joining us as an assistant planner in the planning department. He'll be working on records management. You'll see him in the future making presentations and working on projects. He's a recent graduate of UC Irvine, graduated in 2017, and comes to us most recently from the nonprofit Korean Rescue Center of Orange County. So we welcome Alan aboard.
Okay, now we'll move on to item 7, public hearing. We have one item, 7.1, PLN 18-20065, conditional use permit amendment for the 7-Eleven convenience store at 6993 Hamner Avenue. Do we have a presentation?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. Melinda Lim, the project planner, is here tonight, and she will give a brief presentation. Melinda?
Thank you, Mrs. Norris. Good evening, Commissioners. Before you tonight is 7-Eleven's alcohol conditional use permit amendment. The project site is located in an existing 7-Eleven that's located in the retail center on the northwest corner of Hamner Avenue and Riverboat Drive. The applicant is requesting to add the sale of distilled spirits for off-site consumption in addition to his beer and wine alcohol use permit. The applicant has been selling beer and wine since 2007, and as a reminder, last year, the City Council did deny 99 Cent Store request to sell warm beer and alcohol. Warm beer and wine, sorry. And last year, the project site had 3 police service calls relating to alcohol, but this is much less than the Rouse, which is the next closest location to sell alcohol for off-site consumption. Rouse had 10 service calls. And none of the service calls for the 7-Eleven involved any alcohol theft. Here's a floor plan for 7-Eleven. As you can see, outlined in green is the location for beer and wine display and storage. The applicant is not requesting to expand this area. What you see over by the entrance is the distilled spirits in blue. This is where the applicant proposes to store and display his distilled spirits. And it will be located behind the counter in a locked cabinet. So when we were processing this project, staff kept some of the original conditions from the county which still apply to this project, but we also imposed some other conditions that are seen in other in our city establishments that sell alcohol, such as the limit of bottle size, restrictions on alcohol sales, advertisements in the windows, and that the project would need to come back if they do not comply with any of our conditions. Staff recommendation is to approve the project. Commissioners, you have the following options: to approve the project with additional changes or conditions, to continue the public hearing and direct the applicant to make revisions, or to deny the requested CUP amendment. If you decide to deny this, you would need to provide your reasoning so staff can create a denial resolution, and that will be presented at the next meeting. This concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is here as well if you have any questions for him.
Do you have any questions for staff? Any questions? Do you have any questions?
Yeah, quick question. How many 7-Elevens do we have in the city besides this one? there's two other, right? Do they currently sell distilled spirits? No, okay.
Any other questions?
As a follow-up to that, do they sell beer and wine?
Yeah, the other, there is only one other 7-Eleven. But yes, they sell beer and wine. This would be the, I think we point out in the staff report, this would be the only off-site sale of distilled spirits occurring outside of a traditional supermarket type store.
Any other questions for the Commissioner? Commissioner Lee?
So not sure how many, how much research you have done outside of the city. So how many 7-Elevens outside of the city actually do sell distilled spirits?
We did look that up. Yeah, I don't know if we have the exact numbers in here, but we ran a check of all the liquor licenses issued to 7-Eleven in Riverside County. The vast majority of those were beer and wine only. They were not distilled spirits. There were a handful, maybe half a dozen or so, of the dozens of 7-Elevens that had the type of license that is being requested here.
I have a question for staff. I remember that there have been some requests by the city for repairs and improvements to the property. Does this operator of 7-Eleven, is he also the owner of the shopping center?
I don't believe so, sir, but perhaps the applicant can just confirm that for us.
Okay, thank you. So, any of the, are there still outstanding requests for repairs by the city to the 7-Eleven or nearby buildings?
So we do have some ongoing, the owner of the shopping center has not fixed the street light in the back of the parking lot. And they do have some issues pertaining to solid waste collection cleanup in the back of the facility. And so if the center is not owned by the 7-Eleven owner, it is owned by a different property owner. However, they need their solid waste collection picked up a lot more frequently, or they need more dumpsters or a larger dumpster facility in their back, because what they currently have back there does not services the business in their shopping center. And so there's a couple different ways to handle that. And then they also have some, to my understanding, they still have some exposed wires associated with that street light in the back of their parking lot. So those things we are working to resolve through the community enhancement and safety team.
Thank you. At this time, I want to open public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Is there any cards?
We have one card from Carlos.
Yes, my name is Carlos Carmona. I'm a resident of the neighboring complex to the 7-Eleven, and I've been a resident there for 13, 14 years. I'm very concerned about the proximity of the neighborhood. I mean, a small 3-foot wall separates the neighborhood from the shopping center, from the strip mall. We've had these problems in the past. There's been some illegal knocking down of the wall at one time, where they put a pathway between, somebody put a pathway between the strip mall and the neighborhood to allow access. I don't know why they would want that access. You can literally stand behind the strip mall, 3-foot section, and just survey the whole neighborhood. That to me is just unacceptable. I would like to request that the wall be placed much higher so that there would be no easy access to teens and adults jumping the fence very easily. To me, that would be something that needs to be addressed. The area as well, and it's been addressed in the past, I know that the request for the liquor license was denied because of the proximity to the houses, to the neighborhood, and to the schools. That is a stopping ground for the kids going to and from school, for both the junior high school, elementary, and the high schools. I mean, that's where they are, that's where they go. They have their ice cream, you know, they have their tacos, and they just hang and meet there. So to me, that is also going to be a very big concern. They do sell the beer, they do sell the wine, but the hard liquor is a different level of concern that should really be looked at. I've seen the drawings and I've seen the diagrams as to, you know, how small of an area they're going to have for the liquor sitting right behind the counter. Yeah, it's going to be patrolled, but it's also going to be very easily, I guess, accessible to the kids. All you have to do is go outside and ask one of the adults to get them something. I've done it. I mean, a lot of people do it. I just don't see where that's really going to benefit the community by having such an easy access to the hard liquor. We have Ralph's, we have Vons, Walgreens. They can go across the freeway over to you know, the liquor barn over there and get their alcohol. This is a convenience for somebody either walking up and getting their liquor, sitting in their car, drinking it. What has anything been addressed as far as additional patrols? Am I going over? Oh, okay, and quickly. Okay, has anything been addressed as far as patrolling it or surveying it, monitoring the area around it? I don't see a whole lot of monitoring going on. So, you know, that's another concern. How are they going to monitor? Do they have security cameras up?
Thank you. Is there any other cards? No. Does the applicant want to speak at this time?
To address his concerns, so I want to say that police always conduct minor decoys operation at our store, and recently it was done on February 26th and March 1st, and they always send us the successful letters that we've been doing selling alcohol and cigarettes with full responsibility, that we check the age verification, and our employees are trained. We have a computer in the back room where employees have to get training before start selling beer and wine or cigarettes. So we make sure that every person is carded, so there is nobody under 18 or 21. So that's how we've been selling. So another concern about his addressing about the wall or anything, so that is for the shopping center, that I have nothing to do because I'm a tenant over there. So that is the shopping center, they can do whatever for the whole shopping center. So as for selling the beer and wine, we have the open doors like every 7-Eleven or any other grocery store where people can go and get the beer. But this one, adding the liquor, will be behind the counter and in a locked cabinet where only the salesperson, our cashier, will have the access to grab and give it to the customer, and with full responsibility. So we've been here since 2007. Before even the city, we were given this license by the county at that time, and selling this beer, wine, cigarette, everything with full responsibility. And I've been a resident of Eastvale since 2001. So I mean, this is my city. My kids grew up here, so my kids go to high school, the elementary school. I have 4 kids. So I'm a very responsible resident of Eastvale. So there is nothing that we will do wrong or without responsibility. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other cards?
No, sir, we don't have any more cards.
I will close public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. Any comments or questions by commission?
Yeah, I would like to know, is there a limit on the size of the cabinet that can be back there? Or can it be eventually just the whole wall behind the counter?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Melinda, can you go back to the slide that has the floor plan and then the picture? Yeah, I think what we'd recommend, Mr. Chair, is that you add both of these items to the conditions of approval. So the floor plan becomes part of the conditions, indicating where they can sell beer and wine and where they can sell distilled spirits. And then, next slide, Melinda. And we can include this, that this is the extent of the area in which they can store the distilled spirits. So I think that would address your question, but that becomes part of the conditions, so we can go in and verify that they haven't expanded beyond this much alcohol being displayed.
Yeah, because I've seen another place in Norco and they have, it's the whole wall of the store. My concern is the proximity to the neighborhood and the kids, you know, from the school. My daughter was at your 7-Eleven this morning, as she is probably every Wednesday. Not that she's gonna do anything, but there are a lot of kids that go there, and then especially after school. So there are, I just see so many other places to get the alcohol, the hard alcohol. I'm not really sure that we need it there.
Commissioner Lee?
So I have a question for the applicant, if I may. I think the resident who just spoke before you brought up a good point in that, in terms of the benefit to the community. At this point, why is the distilled spirits sales necessary for our community, as well as why are you coming up with this application particularly? I would like to know that.
I have to reopen,
Yes, if we want to hear additional comments from the applicant, we would need to reopen public hearing.
okay, will you have a question for the applicant? Okay. I'm gonna reopen the public hearing. Public hearing is now open. Will you please step forward and address the commission?
The answer to this question is that 7-Eleven is a convenience store, so this is for the convenience. People come over there to buy the beer and wine. I know there are people who don't like beer and wine, but there are people who drink beer and wine. So this is for the convenience. So the same thing is about the liquor, that a lot of customers come and ask every time that why you don't have liquor. We are buying beer, but for the liquor we have to go either Bevmo or to other place where we can buy the liquor right there at one place. So my concern is that when we are selling all this beer for the last 12 years with full responsibility, and we've been getting awards from police and everywhere that we haven't done anything wrong until now. Every year they do conduct the, they send the decoy and they see that if we are doing everything properly. So when other stores are selling the same liquor at a larger stage with responsibility, the same thing, why can't we sell in a small cabinet with full responsibility where we have more experience than the other stores? We were open here in 2007, and Ralph and other places, they came afterwards. And people, every time they ask that why you don't have spirits, we have to go across the street, go to Bevmo or other places. And that's what came to our mind, that we should start a small cabinet, and it is good for people who want it. It's for their convenience. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Lee? Commissioner Laney, do you have any questions?
Not for the applicant, but for staff. Just reading through the conditions of approval, number 11, I noticed that the higher the alcohol content, the smaller the permissible size container. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, well, the 22 ounce bottles is really just it's gonna be a reflection of how beer is packaged. It's either in a 12 ounce bottle or a 22. And we've historically used the 22 ounce as the minimum size for individual sales. And that's it, working with the police department on these conditions a number of different times for similar off-site sales. And then wine, again, 375 milliliters is a standard size for a small bottle of wine, but we didn't want it to be any smaller than that. And we did ask the police department about the even smaller bottles of distilled spirits, the 50 milliliters, and they didn't have a concern about that, so we did not include a condition there.
Commissioner Laney? Any other? I have not officially closed the public hearing for the second time, but if there's anybody else who would like to speak, well, you've already spoke, so if you'd like to speak, come on up. You'd have to fill out a blue card, so after you speak, fill out a blue card and hand it back to staff. Just give us your name and address.
My name is Winston Chung. I'm a neighbor of Nick Carlos. We live on the same track, 31386. And my wife and I normally take strolls around the neighborhood in the same track. And I know the owner must have done everything that he could to be a responsible store owner. But I know by experience we've seen people climbing over the wall. And I know by experience that we're actually seeing empty bottles laying around the bushes. So maybe the wall is a solution, a higher wall is a solution. But I don't know any connection between any malfeasance connected to the sale of alcohol, but I do see people climbing the wall. I see empty bottles laying in the bushes in and around the neighborhood. So, and I would like to echo what Carlos has said already, that we will recommend, and the commission did a good job listing all other 7-Elevens that do not sell hard liquor. And actually, I have a question whether any other 7-Eleven actually do not sell any beer and wine. And with the close proximity to our neighborhood, it's only one short wall separating the neighborhood. It's one street, and one of them is just behind the wall. So it's closer than any other 7-Eleven to any other neighborhood, including Ralph's. So I think if we want to start with any hard liquor sales, I don't think this 7-Eleven would be the one that we're going to start with in the city of East Bend.
Thank you. Please get a blue card and fill it out. With that, with no other blue cards, I will close the public hearing. Public hearing is now closed. You need to get a blue card and fill it out, please. Yes, right now. Thank you. Commissioners, comments? We'll start over here. Commissioner Laney, go ahead.
The 3 instances stated in the report related to the 7-Eleven, do the police know for sure that those incidents originated from the 7-Eleven or just in proximity?
No, the police records only show where that incident was recorded. It could have initiated somewhere else. It just happened to be that was a location where the police officer made contact.
Any other comments, Commissioner?
Yes. In the presentation, it notes that there's no alcohol thefts that have occurred. Is that in 2018?
Yes.
How about in prior years?
We didn't look into prior years.
Commissioner Laney, any other questions? Commissioner Hovey, do you have a question or a comment? Commissioner Hovey?
So,
Turn off your mic.
I do just have a comment just about the center itself, and I know that he's not the owner of the center, but if the center has all of these issues, and I have been in the center, and it's not maintained, and the proximity to the neighborhood, I mean, they have the trash dumpster right up against the wall of a home. And then I can't see where adding more alcohol sales is going to help that. And I know it's not your issue because you're not the property owner there, but you do pay charges to have it, pay CAM charges, right? To have it cleaned up. And so that's something that you take up with your landlord to have it cleaned. But I would like to think that if everything were in order and there weren't any complaints from the neighborhood and everything were cleaned, then it would be easier to make the leap for that, for me.
Chair and Commissioners, if I may, according to the exhibits in the agenda report, the site still appears to be one lot, meaning there's not a tentative parcel map to further subdivide the 7-Eleven from the rest of the tenants in the center. And that being the case, the conditional development permit goes with the land. And so therefore, if there are items that are out there, though this applicant is not the owner, it is still appropriate for the commission, if they want to condition that the level of upkeep at the center does have to be maintained, fixed and maintained as a contingent upon the CDP. So that would address some of your issues, concerns. And that's only because it's one parcel. If it was subdivided, we wouldn't be able to do that. But in this case, it's not. So you do have that right. And I just wanted to let you know that. Okay.
Aren't they required to maintain the property right now by certain standards?
Through property maintenance, yes. So that's where our code enforcement division comes in. They should be required to maintain. You can put that requirement specifically on this site because of the fact that it's a conditional development permit. If there are security concerns, you can add that as well. The conditional use permit is one of the strongest tools that land use planning has because of you have the ability to condition it to make sure that it serves the public convenience and necessity, but also it's in keeping with the concerns that the commission may have. So you do have that right.
Commissioner Lee?
So, talk me through that one. So we can't put conditions for the tenant to improve the rest of the area in order for them to obtain the CUP?
Not the tenant, but the CDP goes with the land. So since the CDP goes with the land, you can say that you would like to see that the property owner maintain the site in terms of trash pickup and in terms of any exposed wire and or making the safety hazard. Because one of the findings that you're making in the conditional use permit is that it meets the public convenience, safety, and necessity of the neighborhood, et cetera. So if you're making one of those findings, then that means the property as a whole should be held to a certain standard. So you can make that condition, not of them, but of the property owner. It does require the property owner. It's not like the property owner hasn't been notified already to do these things.
So we're basically putting condition on the property owner at this point with the CUP, not necessarily attached to the 7-Eleven then. Is that, yeah.
So if I understand you correctly, the CUP would be held up if the property owner doesn't comply with the conditions of approval?
What would be appropriate to do is try to work with the property owner to say, hey, you have this entitlement. The entitlement does give, it does give additional property value to the owner because now if it's approved, it runs with the land and it stays into perpetuity unless there's some use that doesn't continue to exist for 6 months or less, then it dies. But because of that, there should be an opportunity to work with the property owner to bring it up to code since you're going to grant that additional utility, so. And if you're not happy with the fact that there's maintenance issues that are happening out at the site. So the question is, you're giving it to the tenant, that's true, but it also stays with the land. So if the tenant doesn't own the land, the tenant could move to another location, et cetera, but the CDP stays there. So.
Commissioner Lee, do you have anything else to say?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, so the yogurt place or the burrito place now can then obtain the Still Spirit license now? Okay, no.
So no, and actually, I would not be comfortable with the commission placing a condition of approval that requires the property owner here to do something, particularly where the property owner is not an applicant in this particular situation. And to answer your question, the yogurt place, this is an application specific to the property here, and the applicant here, but I would not be comfortable with placing a condition on the owner who is not an applicant to do something in particular.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, at the top of the conditions, just to respond to your question also about the burrito place, it's a use permit for beer, wine, and distilled spirits in an existing 250 square foot 7-Eleven convenience store. So that combined, again, with the addition of these two exhibits, very clearly define the extent of alcohol sales that would be allowed under this conditional use permit. So it would not, even though it's on a parcel, it would be for this specific location on that parcel.
So in other words, we have them on a very short leash if we do approve this measure then.
Yeah, well, as recommended by staff, you're strictly limiting and defining a very small area in which alcohol can be displayed.
I didn't notice on the conditions of approval, but are there any requiring surveillance cameras on the property?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Condition number 8 requires a surveillance monitoring system to monitor entrances and exits. So there is that. There's also a requirement for an alarm system.
Okay, and that's only on the inside, or does that extend to the outside?
The monitoring system says shall be installed to monitor the entrances and exits to prevent robbery and loitering. So we would expect that they would select the camera locations in cooperation with the police department. They generally like to see who's going in and out of the door. So.
Okay, thank you. To start off discussion, I have concern setting a precedent in Eastvale with a 7-Eleven selling spirits, especially with the close proximity to the elementary, junior high, and high schools, the church nearby. Much like the 99-cent store, I don't see our residents would appreciate something like that. So I am leaning towards denying this amendment to the CUP on the condition that it would be a nuisance, a safety issue with the neighborhood. Do we have any other comments by the commission?
I think I echo Chair's comment on that as well. And on top of that, it is understandable that you're not the property owner. However, we're only adding to the problems that we currently have in the site. So I think it's prudent as a commission to consider things as holistic as possible, rather than just looking at just one minute case in this perspective. And Gina brought up a good point, and then I was kind of going that route, but then again, I am concerned about it, so I do concur with the chair on this one.
Do we have a motion?
What I would recommend is that the commission continue this item until the next hearing so that we can prepare, based on the commission's comments, that we can prepare a resolution, a proposed resolution of denial, documenting the kind of comments and the commission's reasons for denial. Yeah, we understand that to be a nuisance and safety issues, proximity to the church, ongoing issues at the site, proximity to existing residences and schools, and those other issues that have been discussed by the commission. So I would recommend continuing this to the next hearing. We can prepare a new proposed resolution with those issues documented. And then the commission could review that, make any additional additions that it sees fit.
I'll make a motion that we continue this proposal to our next meeting. So we could prepare a proposed resolution for denial.
Second.
Can I have roll call, please?
Commissioner Hovey,
Aye.
Commissioner Laney,
No.
Vice Chair Lee,
Aye.
Chair Oblea.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-1.
Thank you. But you still have your current CUP, it just isn't, so far it's not been approved to be amended. Thank you. So let's move on. Item 8, commission business. Do we have any comment from the commissioners? Commissioner Hovey, you have?
I'd like to welcome Alan to the city. Welcome. I hope you enjoy it. That's all I have.
Oh, we don't have any commission business so far tonight, then, do we? Sorry. So staff report, do we have any staff reports at all?
Well, we already introduced Mr. Lim. I would just, for the audience and the applicant, this item will return on May the 15th. That's your regular May meeting. We also have a plan to hold a special meeting on May the 29th, and I believe the clerk would like to verify that we will have a quorum of the members able to be at that meeting. The 29th of May. It's 2 weeks after your regular meeting. Yeah, at that meeting, we're planning to bring forward a proposed amendment to the general plan to revise our circulation map.
Then we'd have a meeting on the 3rd Wednesday and the 5th Wednesday of the month. Wow, that's a first. I can be there. Just to let you know.
So right now it's open on my calendar.
Further business? Our report from the staff?
No, sir, we do not. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioners' communications. Andrea? You already did yours. Commissioner Laney?
I have nothing to share.
Commissioner Lee?
You didn't want to share the GA announcement?
Sure. There's a regional conference in General Assembly, and I believe we have a pretty good contingent from the city going. We've got pretty good registration. I think we're over 800 at this point, and our fundraising has been excellent. So look forward to seeing you all out there.
So that reminds me, speaking of SCAG, we do need to keep an eye out on how the RENA process is going. So it is moving forward. HCD's close to coming down with a calculation as to a methodology as to how we're going to calculate it. We're going to be saddled with a big number, we're expected. So please keep an eye out for that. Please work with the regional agencies to make sure that that gets addressed.
I have one thing, the 99-cent store, business looks like it's doing well there, but I have an issue with, their little break area on the outside. They have a table and chair there, but there is no trash receptacle there, and so people stop and eat there, but they leave their trash and the wind comes and blows it all around. Is there any way that we could, request them to put a trash receptacle out there by the break area? I would think one would have been required to be there, but,
We'll contact 99-cent Store tomorrow and ask them to do that. They've been pretty cooperative on issues like that, so we'll reach out to them tomorrow.
I know that they, trash collects out there in their yard and their landscaping, and a couple of days later, it seems to be gone. So somebody's coming out there and picking up the trash on a regular basis, but I think, to keep it from blowing right into the neighborhood nearby, a trash receptacle would be the ideal thing to have out there. Thank you very much. I have nothing else. With that, I want to adjourn the meeting till May 15th. The meeting is now adjourned.